Reading in bed.
Hey, Amanda.
Hello, Andy.
Right, what are we up to today then?
Reading in bed. The podcast, not actually reading in bed.
Well, we're actually debating in regards to folks today. At one point, weren't we, Amanda? We're actually going to record this in bed. But all that happened is somebody probably fell asleep in bed and kicked the laptop over, pointing at you probably, right?
Yeah, that was a dream that you had.
This is called Breaking Laptops in Bed. So it's subtext of a podcast, really. Now, of course, I am Andy N.
And I'm Amanda Nicholson.
Yeah, and last of all, this is Reading in Bed, book review podcast. And as I said before, it's a monthly one. And we've been, how many episodes have we done again, Amanda? No?
A lot.
47. So yeah, next month is our 4th anniversary special. So we'll come on to that another day, Amanda, won't we? So, because we, as always, with our Christmas special, we do something a little bit different. Now, how many books are we reviewing today, Amanda?
Well, I've got 2, and one is the same one as what you've read.
Yeah, so I've done 2 as well. So it's 1 joint one and 2 solo ones. Now, of course, before we come to that, Amanda, what are we doing before that? News, yes. What news have you got, Amanda?
Well, my news involves you.
It always involves me.
We're having triplets. No, I'm just kidding.
It always involves me. I'm used to that by now. Seriously, Amanda.
We are having 2 babies, actually, but they're books, aren't they?
Yep, they are. What are the books, Amanda? What are the books, Amanda?
One is called The Snow Was All We Could See, which is a winter book that has poetry and prose and
fiction as well.
Some weird mix of fiction.
Yeah, and what's the other book we're doing? That's coming out in January.
That's called Run Away With Me Again in 8 Words.
And what is Run Away With Me Again in 8 Words?
It's a sequel to Run Away With Me in 7 Words.
Yeah, and what was Run Away With Me in 7 Words? And that way we tell people it's a sequel, isn't it? So that way people know then.
It was a series of poems that was 7 words each that all followed on from each other. And we took it into right then.
It was good. Now, it's worth to explain to people on that one where this book actually came from. And then, because the sequel, which obviously we're just bringing out now, Amanda, was more planned, wasn't it? But obviously, like I said, with the original Run Away With Me in 7 Words, it was all a big accident, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And why was it an accident?
Because I started it off and you carried it on like you do.
Yeah, and it basically was, it started off as a gag, and there's nothing to hide this. It was. Amanda, did you send me the 7-word poem originally, didn't you? I can't remember. You put it up. I think you just put it up on Twitter, didn't you?
Can't remember who it was, but somebody had said that they were doing 6-word poems, and I tried to do that, but the shortest I could get was 7 words, and then I sent it across to you, and you carried it on.
Yeah, as a gag, basically. It has to be as a gag. And it then went backwards and forwards. It went for a couple of months on it, the original book. And then you put each one on top of images. So the sequel that's coming out in January next year we took our time on that one, Amanda, really, didn't we? So we had a couple of false starts to it, really. So, but it will be very similar again. So I said so. And beyond that, wait and see, because Amanda's going to be doing a spoken label session at the end of the next book comes out in January, because obviously you've then done your 12 projects in 12 months, Amanda, haven't you?
Yeah.
Now, how does it feel? I was actually one question is, how does it feel like knowing that these 12 projects are nearly done now?
Yeah, it's good. In some ways, there's a lot of things that I've cleared because I'd started stuff and I'd just not got around to finishing it. And there's still a few projects that I'm going to have to go back to that didn't end up being part of this 12 projects in 12 months. And then also in that time, there's more ideas that come to you when you start writing notes. So it kind of replaces the stuff that you've already finished. So it just never ends, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think as writers, you've always got ideas that you're journeying around your head half the time. And I think it's an interesting idea what Amanda's done with this, really. So, but we'll come on to that more in the spoken label session. Now, the other bit of news we've got today, and what is the third bit of joy news, Amanda?
Well, my part of it is that I had an honourable mention for my flash fiction story on Hannah Kate's bookshelf. But your part of the news is slightly better than mine.
Much to my surprise as well. I got third prize on it in a 3-minute scares piece, which was actually marked up and approved by a noted horror writer, Ramsey Campbell, who
And you
absolutely loved
you
it.
had a great comment as well from him.
Really did. It was because the thing of the piece of mine that's on there is called Winter and Only Winter. It's a prose poem. And I sent it across. I thought, I won't get anything on it because I've never really done much like this before, really, Amanda, have I? So,
No.
but he absolutely loved it. And I know Hannah Kate did as well. So I was absolutely left amazed by it. So it's worth having the programme, certainly. So we'll put it up in the notes so people can hear both mine and Amanda's pieces because I'm really pleased with mine. And I know Amanda's delighted with hers as well. So it's well worth hearing both. So anyway, that's it for that today. So should we go on to book reviews, Amanda?
Yeah.
Now, what is the first book that we're doing as joint review this month?
It's called Her Perfect Family by Teresa Driscoll.
Yeah. Now, would you like me to do the blurb or would you like to do the blurb?
I can do the blurb if you want to.
Yeah, would you like to do the blurb, Amanda, then? Okay,
Yes.
over to you then.
Okay. A gripping psychological thriller from the best-selling author of I Am Watching You, The Perfect Family or The Perfect Lie. It's their daughter's graduation, and Rachel and Ed Hartley are expecting it to be one of their family's happiest days. But when she stumbles and falls on stage during the ceremony, a beautiful moment turns to chaos. Gemma has been shot, and just like that, she's fighting for her life. P.I. Matthew Hill is one of the first on the scene. A cryptic message Gemma received earlier in the day suggests someone close to her was about to be exposed, but who? As Matthew starts to investigate, he finds more and more layers obscuring the truth. He even begins to suspect the Hartleys are hiding something big from him and from each other. While Gemma lies in hospital in a coma, a would-be killer is still out there. Can Matthew unravel the family's secrets before the attacker strikes again?
Right, yeah. Now, this one here, Amanda, obviously, in the regular viewers on our podcast will obviously know we do split it normally into strengths and weaknesses, don't we, before we do a conclusion. Now, This one, we're doing something a bit different this time, and it'll become apparent, won't it, as we carry along. We're going to do it more of a straight discussion on book. Now, there's a couple of points, a few things I want to raise straight away before we go into, we'll talk extensively about the plot, okay? Now, I think was obviously, do you agree with me, Amanda, straight away? The book got off to a very dramatic start, didn't it? In the shooting of the church, which ended up one character in hospital and all the madness that follows in it. And it's where it has to be stated that the setup is on the blurb, but you read the setup, it's a great setup. But it's talking about a girl who's shot at a graduation ceremony in a very English cathedral, where everything about the girl's family starts to fall apart. And then everything seems to change, doesn't it, Amanda?
Yeah.
Straight away. Did you notice to begin with, like it were quite concise, short chapters, weren't they? For most of this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was reading it on the Kindle. Most chapters are no more than a couple of minutes long each time. So that said, but anyway, there is a lot we want to talk about with this today. So I'm going to let Amanda go first. I know you've got at least half a dozen points you want to have a discussion about. I think I've got 7.
Yeah. Right. So the first one, I think there's too many viewpoints and characters that are covered in the book. And I know there are books out there where they have more and they managed to pull it off, but I just don't think this book's managed to do that very well.
Yeah, it was one
I don't
where...
think they're very well developed.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems in this book on that side of things, straight away, I felt as well. Now, you're talking about, how do you feel then about the fact was nearly all of them were in the third person, apart from the mum who was in the first person?
Yeah, I think that threw me a little bit because it's just, I think it takes you out of the story. Yeah,
I think when you're doing what the trick the writer's trying to do with this, and I want to know your opinion on this as well, Amanda. I think if you're having one person in the first person, everybody else in the third person, you've got to have the real emotional baggage of that first-person character leading the story. And it didn't feel that way to me at all with that book.
Yeah.
No, so it caused a lot of
problems. It says a lot about the book for me, that the character that I felt was most developed was actually in a coma for most of the book.
Yeah, I felt the bits what they used of her before she came out of the coma in the diary entries, I thought that was okay, wasn't it? When she was going about when the main character really revealed some of the problems, shall we say, right?
Yeah.
In a quite tangled love life. I thought that was mostly well wrote, but it was probably just too much, wasn't it? So, do you want me to go through with the points I've got, and then we'll talk about yours on top of it?
Yeah.
Did you spot at the beginning of the book with the shooting? There was a lot of confusion on what kind of gun was used in the church and whether a silencer was used or not. And it felt really badly researched at that point, did.
No, because I didn't really know.
There was an insinuation in it, like it was a handgun with a silencer, but she used it straight from the top of the church, like a rifle, to shoot the person.
I wouldn't even notice that because I don't go around shooting people. Or
no, it's not.
I don't really know anything about guns except you fire and shoot and somebody dies.
It's like trying to shoot. It's like trying to use a hand pistol to shoot somebody for 40 yards.
Yeah,
you can't do it unless you're a very, very, very good shot. And it became apparent by the end of the book that the person that did the shooting was away with the land of the fairies. That's putting it nicely, isn't it? Yeah. I felt that was a big problem I had with it. And what did you think to all the points about the inconsistencies about the way the police work in this book?
I didn't really notice anything. I just kept getting mixed up, having to try and work out who was talking, because I know like each chapter's it tells you, but it's like if you get into the story and you turn the page and you don't notice that little bit at the top, it's like you get it like a page or two in and then you have to go back because you think, oh, this is a different character now.
Yeah, it was. I've read books that the viewpoints are more distinctive straight away with that. So I'll go for the other point I had problems with one. There was a point in it where, do you remember the bit about the PI that got asked by the police to go and talk somebody down from trying to commit suicide?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe they did that. I thought to myself, you wouldn't have. I know we both know police people, and I was talking, and there's no way they would have done that. They were setting a civilian up that wasn't trained to try and talk somebody down from committing suicide. That one really bugged me, that bit didn't. What did you reckon to the bit about the PI's daughter and the mysterious letter?
I think I was just completely lost by that point.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, I found it just. I thought it did absolutely nothing to build up the tension of the book at all. That didn't, and I thought it could easily have been removed.
It actually felt like they were just throwing a load of things at you to give you all possibilities of like who could actually be the baddie at the end.
Yeah.
And then the baddie just seemed to come out of nowhere. And it's not like I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm angry because like I didn't guess it. But I think a good thriller book is like you'll get to the end and it'll still be a surprise, but then you'll think, well, actually, there were a couple of very small hints, but like earlier in the book, and it makes sense. And there was nothing like that in this book. It was just no hints of it. It was just like at the end, I felt like the author didn't even realise themselves. And I thought, actually, this is going to be the baddie. Here you go. This is why this is the baddie.
It was terrible. It was absolutely. I hate saying that, but it was terrible. I agree with you on that. I had a lot of trouble with that, where it just felt, and I felt to myself, the character at the end of it, that there was the villain, be it the villain, was awful. It just really was. There was no flesh and bones to that character at all, was there?
No,
it really was.
There was nothing. No moments you could look back on and think, yeah, that makes sense because of this. I can't believe I didn't see it. It was just out of nowhere.
Yeah, really poor. Really poor. It wasn't even a character at the end of it. It was proper. What's the word I'm looking for here? No, it wasn't a character.
It just a supporting character. It popped up a handful of times.
Yeah, there was no that use of that supporting character did not help the book out at all. And it's, as a novelist yourself, Amanda, I have to ask you this one more. When if you did that sort of stunt, and stunt being the word here, it's a cliche rather than a character. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Because would you ever use a supporting character, and then just barely use them in the book. And then they just suddenly appear to be the villain at the end of the book. No build-up, no reason
I
why.
think it could work, but the thing is like even when I've written books and I've not known at the time who the baddie is, and then you put it in afterwards, that would be in the first draft, and you'd go back and then you'd insert the clues into little bits so that when you look back in it actually makes sense that that person is the baddie.
Yeah, that's the problem with it. It didn't follow the genre guidelines of this book at all. And I'm really surprised that I'm going to be frank here, this book got published. And what's got me with it is we're both looking before, weren't we? It's on Amazon at the moment, so there's 1,900 reviews on an average of 4.5 out of 5. I can't see why, because like if you pass this to a policewoman or policeman, they rip this book to pieces.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's Amazon's publisher because they've got lots of imprints, and those are the ones that they promote in their first reads every month. So they're going to do everything to try and get reviews for those books over all the other books that are on their sites that aren't published by them.
Yeah, no, you're dead right, Amanda. It staggered me, really. It really did, this book, because if I'm honest, it wasn't the worst book I've read on Amazon Reads. Frig knows we've gone for some bad books on Amazon Reads, haven't we?
Yeah.
But this is probably the most misjudged and ill-researched book I've read for a while. I was shocked by it because it should have been a book that I think should have been a lot better than what it was, really. And I'm going to place the blame on the editing team in this one. I don't think they've given much support at all.
No.
All right, is there anything else you want to bring up in this book, Amanda?
It just felt like a badly written soap opera on steroids.
Oh, I like that one. I like that one. I remember that one. Oh, yeah, I will remember that one. No, it's true. It really was painful. It really was painful. And people notice that we don't come on this podcast, Amanda, do we, to really lay into books, do we?
No.
We have to both. I can think of a couple of examples where we've both done it before now, but it was one of these books where it's bizarrely enough for me. I read this in about a week, actually. How long did it take you to read, Amanda?
Yeah, I think about a week because I left it a bit last minute, and then I just wanted to get it done because I was a bit sick of it.
Yeah, it was. I do a lot of my reading, you know yourself, Amanda, like when I'm going to and from the day job on the bus, basically, and it wasn't that hard a book to read, and that was surprising how the problems I picked up with it, because the problems seemed to start when I thought about it afterwards, and I thought we've got this, that, and that. Those are big critical problems in this book. And we can't really recommend it, can we? Without giving scores.
No.
So we better give it a mark anyway, so out of point's sake. So what are you giving us out of 5, Amanda? There's 10. We mark it at 10.
Yeah.
Mark it at 10. Apologies, sorry.
I'm giving it 4 out of 10 because I think there's too many characters and they're not well developed, too many side plots. It could have been written better or either simplified. And the only character I really thought I wanted to read about was Gemma.
Yeah, same for me as well, really, because the way the book was set out, you're expecting to actually want to read more about enjoy the PI. And it was okay, but there wasn't a lot there to him, really, was there?
No, it was very flat.
Very flat, and I thought, and then like with the mother, should have been the emotional heart of the book, with her giving her the first person. But it seemed completely pointless, really. So what do you reckon I'm going to give this out of 10, Amanda?
I reckon somewhere around the same as mine.
4 out of 10 as well.
Yeah.
It's all the perfect. We can't recommend it, Amanda, can we?
No.
And that's the scary thing is, it's not the worst book we've actually read on Amazon first reads either, is it?
No, we've read much worse.
Much worse, but this is the one where it's one of those ones where
I would love to be a fly on the wall in the team that decides which books get published, because I'm really curious how they choose.
Yeah, I am as well, because I'd be interested to know how many people actually worked on this book. Because do you agree with me? It just felt like it to me in places. Tell me if you agree with us or not. It felt like a first draft basis was put straight down.
As far as like spelling stuff goes, it was edited, but I just think somebody like a developmental editor needed to look at it.
Yeah, I do. That's what I found was the problem with it, where there's holes in the plot. There's things that were missing in it. And I think like really when obviously Gemma got, there was no mention of the forensics in it. I thought most of the forensics would have been a part and point of working out who's the shooter. There was nothing on that at all. It was like the person hadn't really researched the use of the police in this. And what's scary is the writer had actually done other books, Amanda. Did you know?
Yeah, I think it says in the blurb she won an award for something.
Yeah, that's what staggered me really. That, but anyway,
or best-selling author, that's it. For I Am Watching You, which we probably won't be reading now.
Well, that book is I Am Watching You. Our words is we
I am
won't be
not
reading it.
you.
Yeah, I am not reading you. Yeah, that's the best way to put it straight away. God. Anyway, to clarify, guys, 4 out of 10 for me, and
4 for me.
I thought you were about to say 2 out of 10 then. Just a bit down mark even more.
I've changed my mind. I hate it even more.
The only other thing is, obviously, like, haven't you actually done a book once you give it 0 out of 10, Amanda? Do you remember that one?
I vaguely remember something like that. Did we not name it?
You didn't. You refused to decline to name it.
Yeah.
This one, we actually finished it, and that was it. Well, I said to you, it was bizarre. We finished it off, but thankfully, I'm just glad it wasn't 500 pages because I put on my notes, my review on Goodreads, people might have spotted it. I thought to myself, an extra 100 pages might have filled some of the plot holes in, but then it would have probably got ridiculous trying to get through it, probably, wouldn't it? So
yeah, they probably just would have had more ridiculous subplots and useless characters to the book.
Completely with that. So, right, guys, I know, listen, we're going to conclude part 1. Anyway, so when we come back in 2 minutes, Amanda is going to, what's Amanda going to do?
I'm going to be away with the fairies.
Oh, you're away with the fairies anyhow, most of the time, aren't you? So,
yeah.
Right, we'll see you in 1 minute, guys, okay? Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Hi, guys. Over to part 2. This is Amanda's solo book for the month. And what's good is she doesn't know what I'm going to be doing in part 3, and I have no idea what else she's been reading. Over to you,
Amanda. Give you a clue about fairies.
Yes, but you're away with the fairies most of the time anyway.
Yeah, it's called The Fairy's Tale, and it's book 1 in the Pathway Tree series, written by F.D. Lee, and I had the audio version of this.
Oh, right, okay. So have you got a blurb for it?
Yeah. Enter the world behind the stories, where happy endings, true love, and rags to riches are all just means to an end and a promotion. Here we meet Bee, a cabbage fairy, who dreams of being so much more. She wants to be a fiction manager, godmother of division, but no one at the general administration will take her seriously, until now. One day, a strange, solemn plotter pulls Bee into his office and offers her the chance to make her dreams come true. All she has to do is finish a straightforward story by getting a poor girl married to a rich man. Simple, easy. It practically tells itself, except Bee soon realises that the heroine doesn't love the hero, and the so-called ugly sister is much more important than the plot suggests. Plus, she's pretty certain that there's an actual real-life villain in the mix. And why is it so important that the plots always stay the same anyway? Bee soon discovers there's something rotten behind the simplicity of the stories, and suddenly she is faced with a choice, and it seems whichever option she picks will be wrong. Will she commit treason by changing the story and saving her characters from their endings, or follow the plot and save herself from the sinister redaction department? After all, what kind of fairy godmother really cares about true love?
Yeah, that's quite a long blurb, that was it? Or was it just me seem like quite a long blurb?
It was fairly lengthy, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So obviously, before we start then with it, what you've got this book on? I know you've got an Audible subscription at the moment, so it's obviously come from your Audible subscription. But what made you want to go for this book then?
This was one of the books that was on my list, and I went through it because I couldn't decide which book to go for the audiobook this month. And I just kept clicking on them till I found one that was already on my list that was available on audiobook.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fair enough. No, fair enough. And so, okay then, what did you like about this book? What was your strengths?
I think it was an interesting start, and the character of Bee, I felt like I could root for her because she's a bit of an underdog, and even the other fairies sort of look down on her because she's a cabbage fairy, and that's considered to be quite low because all she can really do is sort of control cabbages and other plants, and it's not a very useful gift.
Yeah. No, of course, getting completely with that. So, okay then. So, what was did the B have a really good journey from A to B to Z, etc. in this book? What was the structure like in contrast to the previous book we reviewed?
It felt more like the journey was like A to D to B to Z back to H, so I was swerving all over the place.
Oh, right. So was it quite a difficult book to follow this one then? Was it with the journey going all over the place?
It did. It felt a bit confusing at times, and a lot of like the sort of plot changes in the book. It just felt like the author at times had like written down like a list of things like this needs to happen and not really set up the scenes for it. So it's a bit like going through the motions kind of thing.
Yeah.
You couldn't really feel like, oh, well, why has that happened and how's that led to that? It's just like, no, this is happening now. I'm not even setting it up. I'm not like preparing you for it. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I get what you're on about there. Okay, tell us about the backing cast then. Obviously, with the structure going from A to all over the place a bit. What was the backing cast like then, supporting the main character then?
There were the other fairies, and then she's got a friend who's just supporting her, who's a fairy. But all the other fairies, apart from that, didn't seem to like her very much. And then there's the characters within the story, but she's supposed to be guiding towards a happy ending. So it's supposed to be like Cinderella, but things start going wrong. And then there's a man a gnome, I think it was, that turns up, and he doesn't want it to go the way it should, and he's not supposed to be in the story, and everything just goes a bit chaotic.
I like it as well with that straight away as well. So
it was like a few different stories sort of clashing, and the story in the story.
Yeah, it sounds like it as well. It sounds like it was that straight away. So, okay, now, is there anything else you want to bring up strengths-wise before we move on to the weaknesses?
No, there's nothing in particular that I want to say.
Okay, then. That being the case, then, is there anything you want to talk about with the weaknesses, then? What you didn't like about this book?
Just what I've already said, really, that I don't think it was very well set up.
Yeah, sounds like
I like to be able to understand why things have happened and how some things led to that, and I just didn't feel like that was set up in a way you could really connect everything together.
Yeah, and now, did you say before that it was part of a series, this book, didn't you? Book one or something,
yeah.
What was the ending like? Was the ending in it? Obviously, no spoilers, obviously. We're not in the spoilers, not really a spoiler podcast. Did the end of the book leave things set up nicely for the second book and beyond, maybe?
Yeah, it was tied up in a way, but then you could see that it could go on to the next book. But I just thought it was a good way to pass the time, and I didn't hate it, I just didn't love it. And I probably won't read the rest of the series.
Yeah, that's fair enough then. So, okay then. Should we go on to marking, Amanda?
Yeah.
What's the marks then?
So I'm just about giving it a 7 because I think it's a recommendation if you like fragmented fairy tales. But I'm not like jumping about and screaming about it and saying, yeah, read it.
Well, that's for people wondering. We were doing that just for the podcast starters to test the sound, weren't we? Jumping up and down the room. So you're not doing that one. This is more like a yeah, like that, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, 7 out of 10, guys. So recommendation, just.
Yeah.
Okay, Amanda.
So you're going to give us a clue for your book when we come back?
I can't remember the title of it is now. So
no, that's how good it is.
no. Man set. I can't give you clues where, but it's set in the Second World War. This one, so
okay.
That's why. So it's a bleak one. Right, guys. We'll see you in a minute then. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Nicholson, and
Andy-Ann.
And what's the title of the book that you're reviewing?
Okay, my solo book for this month is going to. I've lost it for a second on my notes. Then it's called "The Girls in the Attic" by Marius Gabriel.
Okay, and do you want to read the blurb?
Yes, I've got it in. The best-selling author of The Designer, which I've not read, presents a sweeping story of blind faith, family allegiance, and how love makes one man question everything he thought he knew. Max Wolfe is a committed soldier of the right. So when he was sent home wounded on his discovery his mother is sheltering 2 young Jewish women in their house, he is outraged. His mother's act of mercy is a gross betrayal of everything Max stands for. He has dedicated his life to Nazism, fighting to atone for the shame of his anti-Hitler's father's imprisonment. It's his duty to turn his sister over to the Gestapo, but he hesitates, and the longer Max fails to do his duty, the harder it becomes. When Allied bombers fill the skies of Germany, Max is forced to abandon all dogma and face the brutality of war to defend precious lives. Or what will it cost him?
So how did you come across this book then?
First reads, again. So first, Amazon first reads get 2 marks out of 3 for us this month, don't they? So that's why this one I got, it was a while ago this book was. I think it was back in May or something. It's one of the ones that's been in the backlog to go through. And we were, I was going through the books that had been the Kindle. I got my new Kindle begin September. And I thought myself, I didn't even remember what this book was about, so I just jumped straight into it.
Okay, so do you want to start with any good points?
Yeah, well, I said before, we've been, how long have I been doing good Amazon first reads for, Amanda? Now?
Since you started Prime membership, so
it's about 18 months now, I reckon. So I've read a few books set in the Second World War, really. And this was probably the most exhausting one I've read on that topic, the way life Germany was, because the book itself, Amanda, was set at roundabout, started, I think it's 1944, then leading into 45. So set in Germany. So by that point then, if you know your history, Germany was on the point of losing the Second World War. And it was just absolute carnage. It was absolutely carnage, where the people were getting treated. The way of life was like, people who lived there, the 2 young Jewish girls in the book were basically living behind a bookcase, in a hole in the wall. It was awful. The conditions people were going through just to try and survive. So that's what happened there with that. But the book itself, like I said before, starts off with Max, who we meet, who's like I think he's a tank commander he was. And he's basically sent home from the war after a serious head injury, stay with his mother after being injured in the line of duty, as only to find his mother is handed 2 young Jewish girls. And the 4 of them are then caught in a very dangerous game with trying to keep the girls safe. And as the book gets into the second half, a romance begins to build up between Max and the younger sister, Lola.
Yeah. It sounds very grim, though.
It was grim. The book is really filled with atmosphere. It's one of those sort of books where it was probably one of the most atmospheric books I've read in ages. It felt like it could tension in the second half of the book when the 4 of them went on the run. It was pretty. I wouldn't say it was hard to read, but it was just, you know what I mean. You get some books, you put it down 15%.
Yeah, it's not like reading, is it?
I was exhausted by the end of it. Yeah. I read it in about a week. To be honest with you, I read it about 3 tram journeys coming back home from work, and I read about 20%, 25% of one of them, and I had to put the book down because I was getting headaches. Yeah. It was that much. It was just a case of it covered a lot of characters in the book, and unlike the first book we reviewed this time, at least the plot had a straightforward narrative. It was called Survival, and you had characters coming in and out, and they weren't necessarily given a lot to do, but all you see was terror people were going through just because everyone was going mad. And it was like the main character in the book really was the fact the way the Allies and the Russians were basically blowing everything up, and people were hiding all the time and panicking, and it was tons of fear in the book for us.
So was there any more good points you want to move on to bad points?
Have a look then. Yeah, okay, I better talk about the main character, Max, really, because obviously, like I said, when you're dealing with like where Germany was back then, towards the Jewish people, Max is a very curious character in this book. Whereas when he gets sent home from being in the front line, I would have thought if he'd come home back then and found his mum hiding two Jewish girls, he would have forced her to throw them out or reported them. But he didn't, and that's what I found really curious. And then, there's been some criticism of this one where they said no way a Nazi commander would have fell in love with a Jewish girl back then. And you've got to look at the point, was that clutching at straws a bit too much in the way the atmosphere was? But the atmosphere of the book helped me ignore it. But I've seen a lot of criticism over that straight away. So it was interesting, certainly.
Yeah, I think as well you have to decide whether you want to choose between your family and like your job and what you believe in.
Yeah, and that's what he did really, because his father was in prison for sure. He was a very, very strong anti-Nazi. I think the father was killed before the book started, and it pushed the son into the Nazism more. And his mum was probably more a softer rebel, and that's what she was doing. And when he came back, he eventually came down to what his mum's point of view was. That's why. So, but anyway, okay.
So the bad points.
I think really with this one, it was one of those ones where the first half of the book was probably a bit slow, but it was hinting at what's to come. When things went mental in the second half, it really went mad. It was awful with people. You get some quite vivid descriptions of people's bodies getting just dozens of bodies blasted out all over the roads and stuff, and the Nazi commanders basically forcing civilians to fight with them whether they wanted to or not, and if they refused, they got killed. It was pretty grim, and it's for that reason. It's not for everybody. That's why, and I'm sure you get me that one now. I found it possibly a bit predictable in the second half as well, when it looked like the romance thing was build up to Max and Lola. I felt that was, you know what I mean, a bit predictable, really. Yeah. So, but it didn't jar too much. The only problem I had with the book really was there's the beginning of the book had a prologue and an epilogue, and I thought they were crap.
Yeah, did it not add anything to the story then?
Well, no, it's the epilogue was particularly bad, where it basically started throwing things into it that went beyond the end of the story in the flashback that weren't needed. You could have finished it off when Lola basically, I'm not going to give a spoiler away, Lola walked into the distance, escaped when everybody else was, should we say, in quite a few problems, right? That's what you didn't need it. That's why, and it's cost it marks really, because I think it's almost like you're having a Christmas pudding and you're putting like 2 layers of custard on top of it.
Yeah.
Do you get remember? It overdoes it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's why. So, but no, that's all I've got to say.
Okay. So, what's the mark out of 10 then?
What do you reckon I'm going to give this, Amanda?
I think it's going to be a recommendation.
Yeah, it's going to be 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I did really enjoy it. It was certainly, I don't know, I'm not going to say it was the best book I've read on first reads. It was certainly the most atmospheric. Oh, God, it was. I mean, have you ever read books like that, Amanda, where the atmosphere in the book is so, you remember the atmosphere rather than the characters, don't you?
Yeah.
That's why, at least I had a straightforward point, plot of A, B, C, T down to Z. And it covered everything. It was overdone, but no, it's certainly worth reading. So
it's the highest mark book on this episode, anyway.
Yeah. So straight away with that. So I said so. Anyway, Amanda, that's the end of episode 47, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, what are we going to give? Should we give people any hints about next month?
Well, it's the Christmas special next month, so there might be Christmas books.
Yeah, I've got to I'm going to see if I can get a Christmas book. But the one I'm reading at the moment is, anybody read it remembers a couple of months ago, I read a book about time travel called, I think it was called Class of 86. Well, I'm 65% into the sequel for that one at the moment. So, and I'm probably, I'll see if I can find a Christmas book as well. So, are you on your Christmas book yet, Amanda?
No, I'm reading a nice cheerful book I'm probably going to save for January because it's not very Christmassy. It's called Everyone You Hate Is Gonna Die.
Wonderful. So it's a comedy, that one, basically, is it?
It is actually.
Oh, you're joking. I was joking then. You're lying. I'm about halfway through Life of PI as well at the moment. I've got to get that read. Whether I do that for December or January, I must admit that will happen. So, but we're best telling people, Amanda, along next month as well, the December episode of Reading in Bed, we will be having awards on it as well, won't we?
Awards?
Awards, yes. Our favourite book of the year.
Oh yeah. Worst book of
the year, yeah. And we'll do a bit of Christmas readings as well. Okay, so
yeah.
I don't know what yet. So, but anyway, guys and girls, in the meantime, this is Andy N saying bye. And what's Mrs. N saying?
She's saying bye as well.
Okay, see you all next time, guys, and stay safe.
Bye.
And bye. Not over. See you all soon. Take care.
Reading in bed. Reading in bed.